When our clients enroll for our online health and wellness and fitness programs to reverse their lifestyle diseases such as diabetes, cholesterol, PCOD, thyroid, fatty liver, or maybe just to get back to shape, lose some belly fat, pack some muscles. I've always noticed men wants to lose belly fat and pack some muscles and look good. Women don't want to gain muscles. They just want to lose fat from the belly and then they want to just look trim and prim. What is this deal about the muscles? How do muscles grow? Is growing muscles that easy? What can be is protein? If you eat a lot of protein, will your muscles grow automatically? Should you be having steroids? Those people who are into bodybuilding and are interested in going to a gym and lifting weights, should you actually have steroids? If yes, in what quantities? That's a topic that I'm going to talk about today. Before that, please don't forget to always like our video, subscribe to our Facebook page, and follow our Facebook page, like and follow our Facebook page. Alright, so muscles. So let me first start with the difference between muscle and fat mass. Okay, in our human body, the primary difference between a muscle and a fat mass is in terms of, look at it this way. What is fat? Fat stores energy, right? If there is excess energy in the body, that is stored in our human body as fat for future use. Fat stores energy, but muscles spend energy. So higher is your muscle mass, higher is your spend of amount of energy that your body spends. To put it simply, it basically means that your metabolic energy consumption is much higher if your muscle mass is more. Okay. Now there are basically three types of muscle masses. Okay. You would call it smooth muscle mass, cardiac muscle mass and skeletal muscle mass. Okay, the smooth muscle mass and the cardiac muscle mass are involuntary. What are these? Cardiac muscle mass is the muscles on your heart, right? The heart is pumping blood, so it needs muscles. The smooth muscles are the muscles around in your intestine, your stomach. The stomach is able to churn food because and through this motion because it has muscles. The esophagus, the pipe which pushes the food from your mouth up till down your stomach through a movement called peristalsis, that is also a muscular tube, right? So internal organs, majority of the organs are also muscles, right? But cardiac muscles and the smooth muscles both are involuntary. Okay, meaning to say we can't decide to engage or fire those muscles at our will, so they are involuntary. Now that takes us to the third set of muscles called the skeletal muscles, which are voluntary muscles. What are the skeletal and the voluntary muscles? Obviously, as you have already guessed, your biceps is a skeletal muscles, your muscles around your triceps, your hamstrings, all muscles that we use to move around. And all those muscles that we exercise in our gym are skeletal muscles and are also they are voluntary muscles, right? Now, so how do these muscles grow? On what basis do these muscles grow? So let's put it this way. Now, if I am doing any resistance training activity or any activity which puts these muscle fibers across a tension and hence breaking these muscle fibers, what happens is that these muscle fibers gets rebuilt. Okay, but when muscles grow, there are two types of muscle growth. One is called a myofibrillar muscle growth, another one is called a sarcoplasmic muscle growth. Okay, so what is the difference between these two? Let's take the first one, the myofibrillar muscle growth. So these muscles are basically, each of these muscle fiber inside these muscle fiber has minor elongated thread called myofibrils. Okay, look at it this way. A coir that we buy has smaller strands of that coconut husk, right? So one coir has many strands, right? So the coir is the muscle fiber and the small thread inside is actually the myofibrils. So when muscles grow, the number of muscle fibers don't increase, but the number of myofibrils inside each of these coir increases, right? So how does that happen? Because there is a micro tear in your muscle fiber. So the muscle fibers, myofibrils inside that muscle fibers increase. That's how the muscle fiber becomes stronger or thicker and stronger, and hence would be able to lift or engage more amount of weight or force through that, right? So it basically helps in increasing the power and strength of your muscle fibers, because the myofibrils inside each of these muscle fibers are increasing. This is called myofibrillar muscle hypertrophy. Okay, so that's the first type of muscle hypertrophy, the growth of muscles, right? Now in this, if you have noticed, it's the actual quality of muscles which are increasing. Okay, that takes us to the second type of muscle growth. The second type of a muscle growth is known as sarcoplasmic muscle growth. So what is sarcoplasmic muscle growth? Let's look at it this way. So this, suppose, is a muscle. Okay, so this is a muscle. Now this muscle is actually holding up a lot of things inside these muscle, primarily ATP molecules, water, of course. Then there will be creatinine phosphate, there will be glycogen, right? So it's basically called, it's nothing, it's that entire combination is called a sarcoplasmic fluid. So this sarcoplasmic fluid, which is a combination of all these things that I just mentioned, is what actually provides energy to the muscles to be able to contract, or to engage, right? So suppose the amount of the sarcoplasmic fluid inside this muscle increases. Now this muscle, which would mean that this muscle will increase in size, right? It will become like this, right? Because it is holding up more amount of glycogen and sarcoplasmic fluid inside. This kind of a muscle growth is actually known as a sarcoplasmic muscle growth. Here, the number of the muscle myofibrils inside the muscle fibers are not increasing, but the amount of fluid or the energy source it holds up is increasing. Hence, it is no longer this much, it is actually this much. It's bigger, right? So that's sarcoplasmic muscle growth. So what does sarcoplasmic muscle growth imply? It means that the muscle is having more fuel in it, right? It's like your car having a much bigger fuel tank, which means the car can run much longer distances, which means that sarcoplasmic muscle growth essentially improves the endurance of your muscles, right? So myofibrillar hypertrophy increases the number of the myofibrils and hence the quality of your muscles, thereby increasing the amount of power that it can engage, the amount of weight that you can lift, etc. Sarcoplasmic increases the endurance, the amount of time that you will be able to do a particular task or a particular exercise over a longer duration. So that's the difference between these two kind of muscle hypertrophy. Okay, now you need to understand one thing, a little technical and information, but it's always good to know these things, right? Is that there's something called hyperplasia. Okay, so that's basically different. That's basically increase in the size of an organ or a size of a particular structure thing because of increase in the number of the cells. That's related to cancer, right? That can be malignant or it can be benign. So hypertrophy is entirely different thing from hyperplasia. Okay, so it's entirely a different thing. So that's what I want to talk about, muscle hypertrophy. Now coming to the question that the people who regularly go to gym sometimes ask me, building muscles is not easy. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes discipline. Obviously, one of the things which is required to be able to build these muscles is the basic amino acid structures, right? It's basically the protein. So your protein content in your food has to be proper. Only then, if these muscle fibers are broken, the body will be able to rebuild it, right? So typically, if you want to induce a myofibrillar muscle growth, a person would have to do larger amount of weights, meaning to say, instead of lifting a 5 kg dumbbell, lift probably a 10 kg dumbbell, but do lesser number of repetitions. Okay, so probably 70 to 80% of the rep max is a person who intend to create a myofibrillar muscle hypertrophy would do. A sarcoplasmic muscle growth, a person who intend to do that would be doing lesser amount of weight but longer number of sets, longer number of repetitions, right? So that's the difference. Now one thing to always understand is that these two are not independent. A person who is doing myofibrillar muscle hypertrophy would also get some amount of sarcoplasmic muscle growth, and the other way as also, a person wanting to do sarcoplasmic would also get myofibrillar. People who are into bodybuilding typically are more towards the sarcoplasmic muscle growth. Yes, they do have myofibrillar muscle growth also, but it's more towards the sarcoplasmic muscle growth, the volume of the muscles being increased, right? People get into all these roids, juice. These are the other names for these things to get muscles in a much faster method. Are they healthy? Absolutely not. I am dead against the idea of injecting all these kind of nonsensical stuff into your body just to kind of bulk up in your muscles and look better. You need to understand all good things in life takes time, and you need patience for that. So what are these steroids? These steroids are nothing but, the thing which is required to build muscles in our body is testosterone, right? So that's why men gets to build muscles much faster as compared to women, because women are comparatively low in testosterone. Men gets to build it faster. So steroids, there are two types of steroids. There is something called an anabolic steroid, then there is something called a corticosteroids, right? Corticosteroids are the stuff that the doctor gives for stuff like, say, asthma or arthritis, inflammatory diseases, things like that. That's corticosteroids. That's a medical thing altogether. The thing the bodybuilders use is the anabolic steroids. What are these anabolic steroids? Anabolic steroids are synthetic format of the testosterone hormone in the body, or sometimes it could even be the human growth hormone, right? That synthetic format of this, which they either have it orally or inject into their bloodstream. What does it do is that it kind of the anabolic muscle growth is the muscle growth which happens because of the muscle fiber breaking and increasing and all that. It induces that. It kind of facilitates it much faster than otherwise natural methods. So that's what a steroid do. Now, what it also has a lot of negative impacts. What are they? It creates huge fluid retention in the body. It completely messes up the electrolyte balance. It messes up the hormonal balance, especially the sex hormones. It also enlarges and impairs with the functioning of liver, kidney, and sometimes even heart. Okay, so myocardial infraction related issues, heart attacks and things like that, very common among people who go on a steroid overuse. It also reduces your sex drive. It reduces the size of testicles. It initiates man boobs, also known as gynecomastia. So these are the issues of steroid use. So do not get into all these things. Becoming healthy and gaining some muscles and looking fit, take some time. Let it take a time. It needs some effort as well. So that's basically what I wanted to talk about. The factors which impact the improvement of the production or increase of muscles are things like, obviously, your sex, male or female, that I already discussed. It is also dependent upon the intensity of your exercises. It is also dependent upon your nutrition methods. How much protein are you having? What kind of a calorie are you in? It also depends upon genetics. Genetic is also a very important parameter which decides how soon a muscle will grow, or even things like, your basic human anatomy, the size of this muscle, even the length of the tendons on your muscle on your body also is a parameter. What are tendons? Tendons basically connect muscles to bone. Even the length of tendons are also a parameter which decides the how soon can a person build muscles. That's basically what I wanted to talk about. I think I've largely covered the things that I wanted to discuss today with you all. Alright, so please go to a gym, or of course, if you are not able to go to the gym, pick up a dumbbell or even just a bottle of water and then use those as dumbbells, or maybe any weight, a brick or whatever, and start doing some exercises. Thing about muscles being increased is that your metabolism will grow. Higher is your metabolic rate, lesser are the chances of putting on extra body fat, lesser are the chances of all kind of metabolic syndromes. So let's go to some gym and pack some muscles. So I hope this was helpful. As always, stay healthy, stay fit, stay young. You take care. Bye.